You know, the old design talked about chemical imbalances, and the problem is, you know, when you deal with chemicals, what are you saying? You're really, lending yourself to the medical model, and the medical model is always going to come down to medicine. The problem with medicine, just like anything, any other drug, is we're treating a symptom. We're not treating the cause. So the person's going to take the medicine. If they're fortunate and it works for them, they'll feel some relief. But that doesn't change what's causing the problem. Could it be a chemical imbalance for some people? Possibly. But really what we're dealing with is genetically we may be a little bit more fragile, in terms of being more nervous people, more anxious people. But then it's not knowing how to do it, how to deal with it. And we feed into it then. We do things that aren't healthy, and it exacerbates the situation. And then we seek our quick fixes. Docs are real good to provide those for us.
You know, I see some of these disclaimers of medicine on television commercials, Faust, and I mean, they scare the living daylights out of you. The medicine for depression, and they, say they could cause suicidal tendencies, and you see that, go, oh my gosh.
I looked at those commercials, and now in the last decade or so, they've been all over the place. If you turn on television for a night, a 3-hour night, you're probably going to see a dozen of these things. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, okay, these are prescriptions. You can't go out and just buy them. It's not like they're advertising something.
Right.
Go to the store and you can get it. You have to go to your doctor for it. So obviously, to me, that begged the question, what exactly are the drug companies doing? They're really not selling a drug in those commercials. They're selling a drug culture. They have us believing that you need these medications. 40 years ago, I had maybe 5% of my people that would come into the office, 40, 50 people a week, 5% that were on medications. It's like 80% now. And when I think about that, that's just ludicrous. They're coming in, and sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 5 medications these people are taking, all to deal with mental health. So we now believe that if we have something, instead of taking the time to research it and maybe get some help and fix it, we go to the doctor who is, some of them are, the drug companies are very nice to the doc, so they prescribe and they keep prescribing, and before you know it, you're caught in a web you can't get out of.
That's true. Faust, I had a friend who died nearly 4 years ago, and he did part-time ring announcing for fun as in boxing. Mm-hmm. And he had an anxiety attack, panic attack one day in the ring, and they had to remove him physically. They had to come and get him and kind of bleed him out. What causes something like that just hits you where you think you're going to die right there?
Yeah, when it's a development of long-term anxiety. Very few people ever come up with a panic attack right away. It's anxiety that's been let go, or for a lot of people, it's anxiety that has been subject to medications for so long that the body becomes, I don't want to say immune, but boy, you're just saturated with it, and the medication isn't doing what it should do anymore. The nervous system is always invaded by the stress, and after a while, it just wears down. And usually the anxiety attacks sometimes they'll come up in those situations, but probably 8 out of 10 anxiety attacks will present when the person is calm. They're sleeping, they're watching television, they're just talking to a friend, they're home alone. So that stuff is just the nervous system being worn down to the point that it is just overrun by anxiety.
In this society, the way the world lives these days, I mean, it's fast-paced, so many things are happening. Does that contribute to this?
Oh, my God, yes. It used to be it was just fast-paced and we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
What's happened now is that becomes addictive because that accelerated lifestyle produces more adrenaline, things like that. The body gets used to it, and when you get used to producing adrenaline on that level, you seek it out. So now we have the culture going very fast. It's not just a fast culture; it's a fast, angry culture we're dealing with, and then we've got ourselves just craving more and more, and then we're putting the accelerants in our bodies. We're getting up in the morning and saying, well, there's my 3 or 4 cups of coffee, or or espresso, whatever it may be. Afternoon, maybe I'm doing some energy drinks or something with caffeine in it. And then by the end of the day, I'm crashing. And you know what I'm going to do then? I'm going to smoke a joint, or I'm going to pour myself a few drinks. And that cycle just it repeats. And you want to talk about taking a nervous system up and down. It's a prescription for anxiety.
Absolutely. Faust, what is internal balance? What is that concept?
That's something that, I work with. I've been teaching people for a long time, and I try to make this clear to people. We are the organisms that we are. We're physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Those are the four attributes. And I've always taught people to get those in balance. What I mean is simply take care of all four of those attributes. Take care of your body. Your body's going to take you everywhere you're going to go. So take care of it. Get the right amount of sleep. Put the right amount of food in there. Get the exercise. Do those things. Intellectually, we're talking about not overloading your brain with stimuli to the point that you can't turn it off. That type of thing. It's clarity of thought that we're working with. Emotionally, I'm telling people, trying to get those on the back burner a little bit. Get your mind working with the facts. Then when you emote, you're doing so in healthy fashion. Spiritually, you can connect to the inner part of yourself. That's that deeper part. That's great. It's kind of like, if you go back in Buddhist philosophy, and we talked about nirvana there, and I'm not a Buddhist, but, those folks will talk about that balance. That's really what they're talking about, internal balance. And when you get there, it gets you to the point where you don't need so much from the outside. And that's where things get calm and tranquil. So I try to work people into that, but it's just a simple, basic human concept. I'm not doing nothing I do is new, and new wave anything. It's simple, basic, logical living. Get people to be efficient livers.
The media these days contributes a lot to people's anxiety, doesn't it?
Oh, that's how they sell. I mean, that's whether you want to call it fake news or you want to call it shock media or whatever you want to call it.
Sensationalism.
Yeah, you want to, it's that hook. Get people in there, and it's really a combination, in my mind, a combination of the way the media is presenting things, and it's fast and it's right in your face. And then it's the herd mentality that feels, I've got to follow along on things. So I hear a piece of news, and I check the social media or wherever I check, and everyone's going in one direction. I'm going to make sure, at least publicly, I present myself as doing that. When we were kids, we talked about peer pressure. This is like peer pressure on steroids.
Yeah. How about social media? Does that contribute to this?
A lot. People don't disconnect. It's interesting. I ran a group, and this was for, going back, it was some DUI, drunk drivers.
Yeah.
About 10 young people in the group, and I said to everyone, I need you to check your cell phones. Just put them on the desk here. And they looked at me like I had two heads. I said, they're in the same room with you. Just turn them off. We're going to be here 50 minutes, an hour. And then you get your phone back. And one girl went into tears, and the other and said, my whole life's on here. I can't part with this. And that, and that's a more drastic example. However, people's lives are on their phones, and they don't disconnect. I go back when I was a kid. We went to school or whatever we did. We had our data, and we came home. We were disconnected, and we had time to catch our breath. These folks are never catching their breath. You want to talk about bringing anxiety and then depression into your life? It's just ripe for that.
Faust, a couple of years ago, I was watching a couple having dinner at a restaurant. They both had their phones, and they both were texting somebody separately.
Yep.
And they never even looked at each other during the dinner. I watched them for the whole thing.
I see it all the time.
And it was amazing.
I'll go you one better. Doing counseling, I had people come in the office, and they were telling me about this fight they had in their home. And as they're going, I'm saying, something's not right here. And I said, well, wait a minute. Where were you when you're fighting? Well, he was downstairs, she was upstairs. They were texting the battle. This went on for 2 hours of texting. I said, wait a minute, in the same house? And you know what? That's an argument, but I get people all the time that are texting from different rooms. Okay, it's time to go here. We're going to leave now. Don't forget to do this. And it's all texting back and forth. We're not facing each other.
Wow. Is it my impression that the world is more angrier than ever before?
Oh, sure it is.
Short fuses, everything.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's again, the way we've begun to function. And that always concerns me. It's very confrontive. But in my first book, I had a little chapter in there about anger, and when you really begin to work with anger a lot, and just not just being an angry person, a person whose mind is consumed, angry thoughts all the time, and then you begin to use it, and it becomes successful for you. It becomes addictive. The anger actually produces the adrenaline, just like a drug does. Docs will tell us this all the time. If you go into the research, anger and that accelerated drive that you get when you get angry will produce the same types of chemicals that we see in addiction. Same thing happening to the brain in addiction, and people can't stop being angry. And now you can see. We're talking about a nation where people are in the last. Gun people tell me in the last 2 or 3 years, 60% of the weapons purchased were by women. We're getting to the point now where everyone is out there protecting themselves. More people than ever are carrying weapons. I just saw a local person, I think it's about an hour from where I live. He went into a Walmart. Somebody laughed at him. He said, so he shot the person.
Wow. It's something. And in politically speaking, years ago, you could have a discussion about the candidates without getting upset.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that. There's a divide.
Well, I'm in my 60s, and I remember being in college, and being a liberal mind meant that we were open to all different kinds of information. That's what liberal meant. Today it means something very different. It's all the way on the left or it's all the way on the right, and there seems to be no balance. Or at least we're losing the balance that we need. We're not just sitting down and discussing information. We pick a side before we get there. That's dangerous.
That is dangerous, and you're evil on either side rather than being just balanced.
Yes, you are. And there's the pressure to pick a side. If you come and say, well, I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm looking at this side, and I can see your points, and I can see yours. They'll call you out on that, and they'll say, well, you're on the fence. You're not dealing with this. To deal with it means you do, in fact, pick a side. But that's not where all the facts lay. That's maybe half the facts, assuming it's not all wrought with emotion.
We're going to come back in just a moment with Faust Ruggiero. A couple of his books include the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook and the Fix Yourself Handbook as well. His website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. We'll take calls with him next hour on Coast to Coast AM.